in to tonight's show. Main focus of tonight's going to be talking Packers and Lions, who play on Thursday night. Packers with back-to-back Thursday night games. Same with the Lions. I'm kind of curious. I don't have it in front of me. I tried to find it, but I couldn't find it. But I'm curious on when is the last time the Packers played on two consecutive Thursday nights? It's definitely has to have been a while. And Packers Lions have a big history on Thursday night. Last year on Thanksgiving, the Packers beat the Lions to kind of help jumpstart their hot stretch towards the end of the year. The Hail Mary Packer victory with Richard Rodgers from Aaron Rodgers, I think, 10 years ago the other day. That was a Thursday night game. And it's just going to be a very interesting matchup between two very good, very talented football teams that are playing some pretty good football right now. The Lions are 11-1. They have not lost since week 2. The Packers sitting at 9-3. And they are, as I said, playing much better football. Winners of 3 straight out of the bye week. And things just seem to be clicking offensively for Green Bay. And the question is going to be, can things continue to click for Green Bay? Last time the Packers played the Lions, it was a 24-14 loss to the Lions in a wet and rainy and windy Lambeau Field in a game where Jordan Love wasn't healthy with a groin. He was a week removed from pulling a groin muscle against Jacksonville, and he looked a little like he was tentative with that groin, trying to move the ball down the field and complete passes. So since that groin pull, Jordan Love, since coming off the bye, Jordan Love has looked significantly better. Quarterback rating over 100 3 weeks in a row. And the Packers look like a team, especially the last 2 weeks against the Dolphins and the 49ers. They look like a team that is truly one of the top 3 teams in the NFC. And I talked during the show last week when I was talking about teams from the NFC that legitimately have a shot at getting to the Super Bowl. And I named 3 teams in the NFC that legitimately have a shot at getting to the Super Bowl: Detroit, Philadelphia, Green Bay. I think Minnesota's quarterback and Sam Darnold is going to be their biggest weakness. So that's why I don't put them in my top 3. Washington's too young. There's a lot of reasons why I don't have other people in my top 3 besides those 3. I think those 3 are truly the best team in the NFL right now. Sorry about the delay there. I had the Bucks game on. I'm in a different room than usual. I thanks to my mom, got an early Christmas late birthday gift, a very nice TV that I decided to put the Bucks game on and watch on an actual TV rather than my iPad, which I normally do. So if I get a little distracted, Bucks are playing the Hawks right now, down 89-78, trying to make a comeback. They've been down 20 a couple times in the third quarter, 3:43 to go, and now the key is going to be try to erase this deficit even more to try to get within single digits before the start of the fourth quarter. And they just got it to within single digits, 89-81 with 3:32 to go in the third quarter. So they already did that. Now the key is just to continue that run. So back to Packers and Lions. I went on a tangent before. Something else I was going to say about that 24-14 loss at rainy, wet Lambeau Field. I left the game discouraged. Not going to lie. I was at the game wet, cold, just feeling icky in pretty much a rainstorm from kickoff to pretty much the next morning. But when I had a chance to rewatch the game, dig deeper, look into the game a little bit more, the Packers weren't as far off the Lions than the score indicates. There was a 10-point deficit, and at the end of the day, you had a missed field goal that led to a Lions field goal. Then you had a interception return for touchdown, and it went to a 17-3 halftime deficit in a blink of an eye. That field goal gets made. it's going to be, I think it would be, trying to think what the score would have been, but I think it was 7-3 at that time. Would have been 7-6 if that field goal goes in. And then who knows what happens on the Lions' next possession. Packers defense overall, I felt played pretty well. They just gave up one bad run play on a fourth down play that led to a touchdown. But for the most part, the Packers beat themselves consistently against Detroit. They had numerous drop passes on third down, missed field goal, interception return for touchdown, bad snaps, low snaps. They beat themselves, and then untimely penalties. They were very undisciplined. They had a good kick return to open the game, got called back for a penalty because Keyshawn Nixon decided he wanted to run his mouth a little bit going off the Lions sidelines. That hurt. So to beat a team like Detroit, which, yes, the Packers can beat the Lions. To beat a team like Detroit, the key thing is you have to play your A game. You can't make stupid mistakes. You can't shoot yourself in the foot. You have to capitalize and make big plays. If you're throwing interceptions, if you're fumbling the football, if you're having bad snaps. Remember, Josh Myers didn't play in the game, bad wrist. Elton Jenkins, who hasn't played center in a very long time, going back to last year, I think, playing center for the first time all year with extremely wet conditions. And then, like I said, you had at least 3 or 4 times where the Packers should have had a catch on third down that should have converted to first down, and the receivers just dropped the ball. You can't make those mistakes against Detroit. You have to play your A game to beat a team like Detroit. And honestly, the Packers played probably a C or a D game, and Detroit didn't make mistakes. Detroit looked like a team that was ready to play in the damp, wet, windy conditions, and the Packers looked like the dome team. But as I said, I don't think the game was that much of a big deficit as we all like to think. I left that game thinking there's a big gap between Green Bay and Detroit. I sit here today. Later that week, after I rewatched the game, I left there thinking that the gap actually is not that big. And aside from a complete shellacking against, I think, Jacksonville, Detroit's offense has been struggling to score points. They have a lot of injuries. 2 of their offensive linemen will be out due to injury. They got injuries on the defense. They got 15 guys on the IR right now. The Packers need to capitalize on that. And how do the Packers capitalize against the Detroit Lions team with 15 guys on the IR, including missing 2 key offensive linemen? It's simple. It's simple how they do that. They have to protect the football. They can't make turnovers. They can't throw interceptions. They can't fumble the ball. They have to protect the football. They have to eliminate stupid penalties. The encroachments, the lining up in the neutral zone, which is a big problem against Miami. I wanted to scream at the top of my lungs, and I think I did at one point. Don't line up off sides. Learn where the ball is. Got my mom's dogs barking a little bit after that one. Cannot commit those stupid penalties. You just can't. Detroit is a team that will make you pay if you shoot yourselves in the foot, which is something that we saw back in Green Bay when these 2 teams played. You got to protect your quarterback. Got to give him time to scan the field. Got to give him time to find the open receivers. Got to give him time to maybe hit Christian Watson or Dontavion Wicks on a deep pass down the field. You got to give him time to do that. Got to protect your quarterback. Pass protection wasn't that great in soggy conditions with the quarterback with a bad groin, but Love looks like he's much better moving around in the pocket now that he's healthy. But like I said, you got to keep him upright. You got to give him time to make plays down the field. And the big thing, too, is Jordan Love has to continue playing how he is. Jordan Love is taking what the defense is giving him. He's taking the check downs. He's been going to Josh Jacobs on check downs. He's been going to Tucker Kraft on check downs. He's been taking what the defense is giving him. And what that does, it's going to open up the deep passing game eventually. But Jordan Love has to continue to just take what the defense is giving him. Don't take unnecessary risk. We're 2 games in a row with no interceptions from Jordan Love, we got to make it a third game in a row with no interceptions from Jordan Love. And Josh Jacobs has to get going. Josh Jacobs has to get the ground game going. We saw what he did against San Francisco. Big run after big run. The Packers bullied the Bullies with San Francisco. He wasn't as efficient running the ball against the Dolphins, but the Dolphins were so focused on stopping the run game, it opened other things up, and that's what they got to continue to do. They have to continue to pound the football and try to be tough. Detroit gets away, one of their calling cards is toughness. They're a tough team. The Packers need to out-toughen them, and they can. They've shown it in the past that they can out-tough people. They did it against the Tennessee Titans with Derrick Henry, held Henry under 100 yards. They did it against the 49ers with Josh Jacobs running all over them and around them and through them. They have to out-tough the tough. They got to come out with a tone in place that we are not going to be the weak ones here. We are going to be the ones doing the punching. We're not going to be the ones taking the punching. Offensively, if the Packers can do those things, and I know I mentioned not lining up in the neutral zone, that's more of a defensive thing too. If they can do those things offensively, they can move the ball against the Lions. They had no problem moving the ball last year on Thanksgiving. The Bears didn't have a problem in the second half moving the ball against the Lions. The Packers can move the ball against the Lions, but they have to protect the football and they have to capitalize on mistakes that the Lions make. And defensively, they've been tackling extremely well lately. The Packers have been a very good tackling team. They can't lose it against the Lions. You've got to make tackles. You cannot let them get a lot of yards after the catch. You can't let them, run the ball down your throat. You got to get them off the field on third downs. You got to get some pressure on Jared Goff. He struggles when he gets taken off his spot. He's been known to throw interceptions, and that is something that you have to try to force his hand. You got to force him to make bad throws, bad decisions, and then capitalize when you have him make those bad throws, bad decisions with an Xavier McKinney or an Evan Williams or a Bullard intercepting that ball. And tackling, as I said already, is going to be key. Quay Walker, Isaiah McDuffie. Quay Walker's played his two best games as a pro the last 2 weeks. Isaiah McDuffie had his best game ever as a pro against the Dolphins on Thanksgiving. Those two have to set the tone by being aggressive, attacking the line of scrimmage, and making tackles. If the Packers can't get a pass rush and they can't stop the run, Jared Goff is going to be able to pick them apart, especially with no Jair Alexander in the secondary. It's going to be depending on your Valentine and your Stokes and your Keyshawn Nixon, Rochelle. Those are the corners you're going to be depending on Bullard to make plays and get the defense off the field on those third downs. And the best way to help a secondary that's ravaged by injuries, simple. Get pressure on the quarterback, force him to throw the ball when he's not ready to, and that's going to lead to mistakes. The Packers forced, I think, 2 fumbles against Jared Goff last year in Detroit on Thanksgiving, and I believe they had an interception as well. And the Packers ultimately just have to play the game they've played the last 2 weeks. And I think the Packers get the win. I think the Lions are due for a loss. They got very lucky that the Bears forgot how to play football on Thanksgiving, not calling a timeout and letting time expire when they had a chance to tie the game late to send it to overtime. If not, win it late with a touchdown, they kind of crapped down their leg. The Lions, to me, are due for a loss, and I think the Packers give them that loss. I think the Packers get the victory. I think it's going to be a 38-28 type ball game, and the Packers get the win, and Jordan Love's going to ball out and have a very successful day in the Motor City against Detroit. That's my thoughts on the game, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a homer. I truly think that the Packers are going to get the win in this game coming up. So that's my Packers and that's my Packers and Detroit thoughts. You can follow me on Twitter at Evan with Sports. You can follow me on Facebook and YouTube Talking Sports with Evan. Give me your thoughts on the game. Let me know what you think. Packers or Lions? Who's going to win? Let me know. Packers win because, Lions win because. Let me know. And maybe I'm going to be proven wrong, and the Lions are going to be the better team. They're going to be the better coach team, better prepared team. But that's just what the Packers can't afford to have. They've been the better coached, better prepared team the last 3 weeks. They got to continue that trend, and I honestly think they're going to. So that's my thought on the Packers and the Lions coming up. And that's really going to be the gist of my show tonight. Now, I guess we had National Signing Day today for college athletics and especially football, and the Badgers got a number of recruits. They've also lost a number of guys to the transfer portal, going to lose a bunch to graduation. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Badgers decided to do with the offensive coordinator position. They talked about that they might be hiring both an OC and a quarterbacks coach, as Longo did both jobs. I think that'll be a good thing, is have a quarterback-centric coach specifically there to focus on the quarterback play and let the offensive coordinator do what the offensive coordinator is supposed to do, and that's lead the offense, call the plays, design the game plan, not worry about coaching specific positions. I think that'd be a great idea. But I'm happy with what the Badgers did recruiting-wise. But as I said last week's show, last Friday, after the embarrassing loss to Minnesota, that I'm not ready to give up on Luke Fickell, but I think the conversation needs to start happening that it might be time to have the discussion if Luke Fickell is the right man for the job. And year 3, under the Fickell era, even with all these guys transferring out and having to depend on a lot of young guys, it's looking like Luke Fickell, this is his chance, this is his opportunity to show Badger fans, show Badger faithful, show the players, the former players who are becoming very critical of him. It's time for them to show everybody that the Luke Fickell is the right man for the job and that he is going to get things turned around. And the win-loss record may not follow suit at all next year because they got a pretty tough schedule. But if they're playing more competitive, if they're playing stronger, if they're playing better prepared, those are the little things that's going to show you if they truly are getting better. And I made the comment on my last show last week. I made the comment on X that moving on from Paul Chryst was the right thing to do, as some of the problems we're seeing, some of the issues we're seeing since the since Paul Chryst got fired are things that we were seeing during the final couple years of the Paul Chryst era. I know they went 9-4 in 2021. I know they made a bowl in that year. I know we made a bowl in 2020. I know we made a bowl in 2022, and we didn't make one this year. But the point I'm making is, yes, they won 9 games in 2021. But eventually, Paul Chryst got fired in 2022 because of some of the same things we're seeing right now. And I'm not blaming Paul Chryst for what we're seeing now because he hasn't been the head coach in 2 years. What I'm saying is the writing has been on the wall for the past few years that the Badgers are going to be in a downturn. And I think it was time to move on from Chryst as recruiting was starting to suffer. And my justification for feeling that way is go beneath just wins and losses and look at how they were winning and how they were losing. And I know I say NFL-wise all the time, don't worry about the quality of win, just get the win. College football is different. College football, you're playing teams that you should blow out no problem as soon as you roll the football out there. South Dakota this season, for example, with Wisconsin. They struggled a little bit against South Dakota. Western Michigan, Buffalo, Washington State. Those are teams that the Badgers should be winning, but they lose to Washington State. They struggle against Buffalo. They struggle against Western Michigan. They struggle against South Dakota. And that was happening in 2020, 2021, and 2022. Washington State lost in 2022. They were struggling against teams that they have no business struggling against, and their losses are becoming uglier and uglier. I'm not expecting them to beat Ohio State. I'm not expecting them to beat Penn State. I'm not expecting them to beat Michigan every year. Those are three very tough teams, three of the best teams in the NCAA, Big Ten, year in and year out. But what I need to see is them be competitive, them fight, them battle, them scratch, them crawl to try to get those wins. And if they don't win, I'm not a moral victory guy, but at least we can say, hey, we played hard for 4 quarters. There's just a talent gap. The losses got uglier. The losses to Ohio State, to Penn State, to Michigan got uglier and uglier and uglier. And it was definitely time to figure out a new direction of the program. And maybe Luke Fickell wasn't the guy. Maybe it was Jim Leonhard. I don't feel it was. I think if Jim Leonhard was supposed to be or could have been the guy when he was interim coach in 2022 after Chris got fired, I think Jim Leonhard would have showed it right then and there that he was and is the next head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers. I think it was the right thing to try a different direction. Ultimately, giving the job to Jim Leonhard would have been the easy choice, would have been the easy decision, as Badger fans would have been extremely happy with Leonhard getting the job, and Chris McIntosh would have had some grace period there. But by making the decision to go outside the program, he is he's trying something different. And recruiting's gotten better. It's going to be all about player development. And player development, again, has been struggling for a few years now. And now it's Luke Fickell to figure out how to develop this talent and get them ready to play on Saturday. So that is my justification of saying that the team was on a downward spiral prior to Luke Fickell getting the job. But when I'm making comments like I've made, I'm not saying Luke Fickell can't be criticized. What I'm saying is let's not rewrite history. Let's not rewrite history and make it fit our narrative better. Let's look at reality, and that's what people need to do. And things were struggling before that. Well, Bucks down 101-92, just got caught with a technical foul. I have it on mute, so I'm not exactly sure why, but it's just been an ugly game for Milwaukee. Bobby Portis, it looks like, got caught with a T. Just an ugly game, sloppy turnovers, missing threes, just not controlling the tempo of the game. And now it's another 10-point deficit with 9:42 to go in the game. And we'll see if the Bucks can now they're down 8. We'll see if they can go on a big run and get the largest comeback of the year. Well, I will be back with you probably Friday to recap, hopefully a Packer victory, and get you ready for the sports weekend. I will say this as we move into 2025, expect more content. Yes, more content from me. You can follow me on TikTok. I'm just pulling up my username now really quick at Evan Witallison. You can find me on TikTok there. And I have some sports takes and sports videos there. And you can find me on YouTube, Talking Sports with Evan, and Facebook, and on Twitter at Evan with Sports. Make sure to check those sites out. Give it a follow, give it a like, and follow along as I bring you even more content, especially as we're moving towards the NFL draft. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Audio version will be available first thing tomorrow morning. This has been Talking Sports with Evan. Have a great rest of your night, everybody.